My first inspirations came from listening to the radio when I was about 14 and late night broadcasts of big bands at that time. And they had these great big band broadcasts, and you would hear Woody Herman, Count Basie, Tommy Dorsey, all the great bands, Duke Ellington, coming from the various spots where they were playing. They were my real first inspiration. Dave Tuff with Woody Herman, and actually Sonny Greer with Duke Ellington, later Louis Bellson.
Like Eddie Shaughnessy does with the clinics.
Right.
And by the way, he doesn't have to take a backseat to anybody.
No, he doesn't. Eddie Shaughnessy is one of the great drummers of all time.
Of course, the great Gene Krupa would broadcast, and I would hear, of course, the extremely talented Buddy Rich with Tommy Dorsey. So these were my starting guys. I didn't see them for a while because I'd have to get older and go to theaters, but I did hear them when I was very young, and that got me started. When I was 16 years old and getting close to graduating high school, a lot of people said to me, well, you know how little work there is here in Jersey. You've got a couple of school dances and that's about it. You got to go to New York. This is what they convinced me of. So, you know how sometimes when you don't know better, it's better you don't know better? And I got on the subway for a dime at the time, close to my house in Jersey, with a snare drum in a cloth case, a small stand, and a pair of brushes. And I took this over to Greenwich Village, and I started walking around Greenwich Village. And a voice said from the stage door to a nightclub, "Hey, young man, what are you doing with that drum?" And believe it or not, it was the invaluable and estimable bassist George DeVivier, who later became a great friend of mine, saying to a young kid, "Hey, what are you doing?" At this really deep voice. I said, "I'm looking for a place to play, mister." And he said, "Come on in here." I swear this is true. It's like a movie, only you wouldn't put it in a movie. Sounds too corny, doesn't it? This was the Village Corners, which was down at about 10th Street in Greenwich Village, and he was working there with a trio, like a Nat Cole trio, no drums, bass, guitar, piano. They pulled up a chair for me, I set up my little drum, and I played. And I guess it was passable at least, and they said, "Hey, you want to come back tomorrow night?" I said, "Yeah." And so from then on, I would go over 1 or 2 nights a week from Jersey with my snare drum and my stand and my brushes, and I would play with these guys. I can't tell you what it did for me because George was a superb bassist. The other guys, I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. They were great at piano and guitar. And for a young guy, it really broke the ice. And from doing that with them, I started meeting a few other people. I miss New York like crazy. I get the New York Times as well as the LA Times. And I always try to keep up on what's happening in New York City because I was there for many, many years and I learned to play there. I went on 52nd Street at 16, 17, and people like Big Sid Catlett and Max Roach, Art Blakey, they were all friendly to me and good to me. And that's where I learned to play a lot by sitting in. And you know, I think of New York as having given me a very good living for me and my family, I guess for about 25 years. Before I went to California with the Johnny Carson show. And I will always have a soft spot in my heart. 2 years ago, I played Carnegie Hall with Doc and the New York Philharmonic Pops, and it was great to get back there. And the first place I go is the Stage Delicatessen. It's definitely a corned beef sandwich and chicken soup. My first paid job was with a high school dance. And I played there with Frank Novello and his Crusaders, I think, in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I remember I made something like $7, and I thought, this is the cat's meow. And we had a big crowd, and I guess I did okay for being about 15. I was a junior in high school at the time. I remember Frank as being a great guy, fine saxophone player, and he gave me a break at being such a young kid. And listening to all those big bands on the radio really helped me play some of those arrangements. That was my first gig with money. Oh, the double bass drum happened strictly because of Louis Bellson. I went to see a Tommy Dorsey performance at the Strand Theater, and Louis just knocked me out with his double bass playing. I got to know him, believe it or not. I went around to get an autograph, and he became friends to me. I can't tell you how valuable it was, invaluable actually. And he gave me another bass drum pedal, and he said, I'm sure lying through his teeth, oh, you have a natural knack for this. He had me sit down and play on his double bass kit. And he said, oh, you have a natural knack for this. He gave me a pedal. He said, now go find another old bass drum. And I did. I found one that was smaller than my bass drum, and I became a two bass drum drummer, strictly, believe me, with great thanks to Louis Bellson. Louis sketched his own drum set out when he was young, but the first guy was Ray McKinley in 1936. And Ray McKinley told me on the phone, I said, did you really play two bass drums? He said, yes, because we played boogie woogie, and I couldn't play fast enough on one bass drum to go dum da dum da dum, so I would play all the boogie woogie numbers on a special set, dum da dum da dum. I thought it was a great answer, but he said I never used it like Louis did all the time in the band, and he said he deserves, you know, the major part of the credit. I was a reasonably successful all-around drummer, you might say, in New York City. Freelance is the term we use. I was doing quite a few record dates. I worked in nightclubs a lot because I like to play jazz, so I would do that at night, and I would do some daytime recording sessions and jingles, you know, mixed bag of things, and I was lucky enough to be earning a pretty good living. I got a phone call from NBC, and they asked me, would you like to take the job with the Johnny Carson show, which had been on the air, I think, about 9 months. And I said, no, thank you. I'm kind of happy doing what I'm doing, showing the wisdom of my ways. And they said, well, would you do us a favor if you don't want the job permanently? Would you help us out for 2 weeks? We have a gap, a drummer got sick, blah, blah, blah. I said, yes, I could do that. At that time, Doc Severinsen is the lead trumpet player, Clark Terry's the jazz trumpet player, along with Snooky Young. And the feel of that band, especially with these kind of guys in the brass section, was phenomenal. I just enjoyed playing with the band so very much. I came home to my wife after I'd done a couple of nights. I said, you know something? This is a great band to play with. And she said, well, do you think you might like to take it? I said, yes, I do. I'm really basing it more on music than anything else because I was earning a reasonable living. And I went to the contractor at NBC and I said, what have you done about another drummer after I'm done? He said, why do you ask? I said, well, I love playing with this band. Do you think I could stay on? And he laughed. He said, I never picked up the phone. Once you played with this band, I expected you to come in the door and say just what you said. And that's actually how I got the job after first refusing it. Again, the wisdom of my ways, but it lasted for 30 years, and it was a great 30 years. And the leader, I certainly should mention, is the late Skitch Henderson. He actually hired me. I think that generally I was known as a happy player, and it wasn't anything that I put on. I just enjoyed playing with that band so much, and I just enjoyed drumming so much that even today, many, many years later, we're 16 years off the air now, I can tell you just that I just enjoy playing and teaching and everything else connected with drumming easily as much as I did during those years. And because the band was so high caliber, I think that's the main reason you saw the smile on my face.
Best seat in the house, I think, really.
Ruben, I admire a guy. He put up a valiant fight, but he's just a loser. I mean, the other night in bed, Mrs. Askew said she was undecided. Wait a minute. Where you been working, Shaughnessy? This is a highly... Where does this say drummer does, aid the prince? Okay.
Ed Shaughnessy, drums. University of Lucky Melinda.
Yeah. And by the way, those aren't sideburns, ladies and gentlemen. During the cold weather, Ed allows squirrels to sleep on his cheeks. Beautiful guy.
I would say my favorite act to play for was B.B. King. First of all, I'm a great fan of the blues. And B.B. is the kind of guy that even when he rehearses, he gives you 110%. And it's like a joy just to rehearse with B.B., much less play the show. So out of all the hundreds of acts that we had on, I would say B.B. King was really my favorite. I think I'm the type of guy that enjoys playing big band and small bands equally, but I think my preference might go to big bands only because I've had a chance to play with Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, and the great Doc Severinsen Band. And having played with kind of the cream of the crop big bands, I think it becomes a little more my favorite, although I've had a lot of fun with combo work for many years.
Salt peanuts, salt peanuts. Salt peanuts, salt peanuts.